red sticker, yellow tape. My door is sealed. I twist the knob. Dead. Keys bite my palm. Brass, nickel. The dented one that opened every winter, none turn. Behind me, suitcases scraping wet concrete, a plant wrapped in a grocery bag, a kid trying not to cry. The notice fogs under plastic, condemned, signed by a city number I recognize from fundraisers, not inspections. I don't shout. I count floors by memory, boiler, stairwell, the window on 3 that sticks in summer. Across the street, a phone camera blinks. Someone texts a photo of my door before I even read the code. I check the side entrance. Chained. Basement hatch. Chained. Every lock answers to a stranger. I sit in the car, line up a ledger on the dashboard, and start writing names. One call, a council aide. One text, fire prevention. One knock, a Belarusian hacker with a quiet server. 14 addresses light up on my screen, all his. Real violations, real danger. I set one brass key on the dashboard. I kept every file. Want to see this key turn and watch the man who stole my building walk past it in cuffs? Subscribe now. I'm Abe Klein, 74, caretaker by choice, landlord by title, retired city building inspector by habit. I never shook. The front seat reclined 2 clicks. Wipers, thud, pause, thud. The rhythm counts out what I've lost. Paper cup between my palms. The lid peels my fingertips with heat. Coffee rides my throat like sand. I let it burn. The burn keeps me awake, and awake is what the building needs from me, even when the building won't let me in. The ledger lies open on my lap, a rubber band around its middle like a belt on a thin man. Names in block letters, dates lined with a carpenter's neatness. Alvarez, 2B, stove swap, no charge. Singh, 5A, leak, wall patch, Sunday. Andre's mother, 3C, missed rent, prom week, forgiven. I can smell every line. Primer, bleach, the copper bite of a bad pipe. My handwriting is steady, where my hands aren't. I tilt the rear view until the lobby fills the mirror. Rain beads on the glass, turning the red sticker into a smear. The engine ticks as it cools. Keys rest in the cup holder like teeth in a dish. Brass, nickel, the dented one that's outlived 3 superintendents, 2 mayors, and 1 winter that turned the front steps into a luge. Every tooth knows a lock. No one helps me now. I count rooms by memory, because memory is the only floor plan they can't seize. Boiler room smells like rust and last year's gloves. Laundry, 3 machines, 1 stubborn belt, a quarter jam you coax with a butter knife. Basement hall, cool air, bikes with blinking lights. First floor, mailboxes with dings like old foreheads. Second, Mrs. Alvarez's spider plant, the one that only catches light after noon. Third, Andre's sneakers are bleeding color onto the mat. The window on the 3rd floor that sticks when the sun hits the brick. Fourth, Mr. Singh's radio, late cricket matches like faraway rain. Roof, tar and sky and pigeons with a sense of timing. I could walk it blind. I could oil each hinge by sound. My name is on the deed. But names on paper don't keep water hot, don't keep alarms tested, don't fix a cracked tile so a toddler doesn't trip. I've kept this house breathing for 30 years. I say house because that's what it is, the place that holds the people who hold each other. Another sip. The coffee cools enough to taste the cheap roast. I press the lid back on. The lid clicks. A clean sound in a day of dirty ones. I flip the ledger's page. Receipts live in the back pocket. Cash slips nobody asked me for. Notes from tenants folded like paper cranes. Gracias, Abe. God bless you. Next month, I promise. I kept each one. You never know which words you'll need to remember who you're fighting for. Phone on the dash. Lock screen fogged with my breath. 3 names pinned for when I stop licking wounds and start work. Lila. I met her as a kid trailing her mother up the stairs with a library card and a plastic bag of paperbacks. She grew into a councilman's aide with a spine like rebar. Mateo, fire marshal's office, knows the difference between paperwork and safety and treats the second like holy ground. Kirill used to solder cheap radios in a Minsk winter. Now he can pull the guts out of a shell company with a laptop and a borrowed outlet. My hands feel sore every year. The right index finger doesn't fully curl from a ladder slip in '98. My hip announces rain 3 hours before the sky does. I am not fast, not strong, but someone once taught me that a building trusts the person who knows where the bolts are under the paint. The red sticker stares through the rain. I stare back. Breath fog blooms on the glass, then clears, then blooms again. The wipers keep the beat. Thud, pause, thud. I list it all because listing is how I keep from breaking. Repairs I waived. Rents I forgave. Times I chose people over paper. This is not a martyr's tally. This is a map of why we are still standing, even now. The coffee bite fades. Fatigue takes its seat in my shoulders. I give it a moment, the way you give an old friend the chair by the window. Then I push the cup aside and take the dented key from the ring. I balance it on my knuckles, feel its weight settle. A key is a metal token of promise. If a lock forgets, you remind it. Rain slicks the street into a dark ribbon. The lobby light blinks once as if the building is winking under a fever. I know that the blink, loose ballast, third fixture from the left. My thumb finds the ledger's ribbon and marks the page. I exhale and let the quiet inside the car feel like a hallway after everyone sleeps. The fatigue is bone deep, but bones are a structure. Structure holds. My name is Abe. I keep records. I hold keys. I don't throw them. When you lose a door, do you leave? Or do you start counting? Lila doesn't waste hello. She slides into the passenger seat with rain in her hair and a manila folder zipped inside a freezer bag. Her phone's brightness hits my eyes. Message thread. Unknown city number. The developer's first name is shortened like a nickname only friends use. Timestamps that match the day the red sticker appeared. Words lean on each other like they've done this before. Inspection scheduled? We'll make it stick. Auction window, and a thumbs up that feels like a thumb on my windpipe. She scrolls. A photo of my front door, taken hours before I ever saw tape, sits in the thread like a trophy. I know the angle. Across the street under the bus stop's scratched plexiglass. Shadow of the route map across the glass. Someone watched the building and sent proof upstream. A paid errand. A practiced hand. I pass her the ledger, so the car has more than one kind of paper in it. Chain it, she says, and taps the screen. Call logs. The number blocks themselves after each use. Fresh routes each time. Same owner if you dig through enough filings. She did. I see the dead ends and the sudden lanes where sunlight gets in. Campaign dinners, a ribbon-cutting photo, a fundraising committee with a surname that matches the contractor who signs demolition permit checks. It isn't genius. It's repetition. The kind that only collapses when someone refuses to stop reading. My phone buzzes. Mateo. He speaks in attachments. PDF, PDF, PDF. Each subject line is a date I can smell. Complaint, blocked egress. Report, non-functioning alarms. Follow-up, gas odor, tenants relocated by friends. Addresses I recognize. Not from the developer's brochure, but from the way the tenants lined the sidewalk while a child stared at a backpack like it could answer. Flags file, then move to quiet folders. If you listen, you can hear the scrape of a broom pushing dirt under a rug. Across town, Mateo writes, repeated, marked inspected with no inspector signature. Internal note, council interest. Council interest, The phrase you use when you want people to act like gravity goes sideways. I pull the dented key from the cup holder and balance it at the notch that never fits any new locks. A metronome in my hand. I am not a cop. I am not a lawyer. I am the man who used to check stair heights and call out contractors for shaving a quarter-inch off a tread. I know how shortcuts feel underfoot. They wobble even when they look clean. Kirill appears in the side mirror, hood up, shoulders hunched against the needle rain. He doesn't come to the window. He circles to the back seat and slides in without a word, like a kid who's learned not to make himself a target. His laptop is old enough to look harmless and new enough to be dangerous. The screen glow makes his face look like paper. He places a little metal box on the seat between us, no bigger than a paperback. "Quiet server," he says. Accent sits on the consonants like a boot. "Not from here? Not to here? You point? I map?" Lila hands him a sticky note with the city number, the fundraiser, and the contractor's surname. He doesn't nod. He is already somewhere else. Registry tables, shell companies, campaign finance disclosures. The little box hums like a fridge in a cheap apartment. Not loud. Constant. I open Mateo's PDFs. Photos live inside them like warnings that didn't finish their sentences. Jammed fire door with a chain the width of my thumb. Smoke detector with the battery taped in, and the date code scrubbed. Stairwell with a missing spindle where a child could slip a head through and panic. Work orders marked complete, signed by a hand that never stood in that stairwell. My jaw grinds. It hasn't been used since I wore a badge and told a man to shut down a party hall because the exit signs were just painted boxes. Lila sips the coffee I forgot to finish. She ignores the bitterness. 14 properties, she says, owned by different names, same pile. She's been collecting them the way I collect rent promises on paper I never cashed. She points at the fundraiser name again, then at the auction date, then at the red sticker peering through the rain. A line connects without a pen. I scroll back to the text with the developer's nickname and the phrase "make it stick." They needed a reason for my building, so they made one. Across town, real reasons wait without sirens. I don't need to raise my voice to understand what that means. The house always pays when the dealer owns the table. The quiet server chirps once. Kirill angles the laptop so I can see. A diagram builds itself like a subway map for money. Boxes for LLCs, lines for transfers. A contractor who bills two names from the same address on the same day for the same job. Rounded amounts that smell like convenience. A city contact whose brother-in-law's company gets a no-bid rush for site safety the week after an inspection clears. Patterns are just habits with proofs. I draw a breath through my teeth and push the ledger to clear space. I lift the rubber band and slip in a new page torn from the back. Targets. And I list the 14 addresses. I leave a line after each for the code references I can recite without thinking. IBC 1008, egress. NFPA 72, alarms. 2010, ADA, handrail clearance. I was told once that knowledge dulls when you set it down. Mine didn't. It waited like a wrench on a hook. The screen flashes a new square. Photo of a basement wired like a nest of snakes. A corner cut where a pipe loses its sleeve and kisses a wire. I imagine the smell. I know how quickly a bad choice becomes a siren. Mateo's following message arrives. If these tips land with chapter and verse, they cannot be ignored. Intake must log. Audits follow. Choose order. Start with life safety. He uses the words that separate annoyance from danger. I circle 3 addresses on my page. I speak to the windshield, to the red sticker, to the habit of men who think fines are fees. We go by risk, fire doors, gas, egress. I stab the pen next to each. Lila is already drafting. She doesn't dress it up. She uses the sections like coordinates and links them to photos, dates, and prior complaints. She hits send to inboxes that don't get to sleep under the phrase council interest. It's not clever, it's clean. Clean cuts stay open in the light. Kirill taps a key, and the laptop camera is covered with a piece of tape he produces from nowhere. He smiles for the first time. It doesn't reach his eyes. When they look back, he says, they see nothing. I put the dented key back on the ring. I recheck the side mirror. The bus roars through the stop, throwing a sheet of water against the plexiglass where someone once took my building's picture for a text thread that felt like victory. The sheet slides down. It leaves streaks. I don't say we'll win. I don't make promises I can't put in a file. I hold the page with the 14 lines, the 3 circles, and the code sections that have protected more lives than any speech. My bones are tired. My hands are sure. When someone shows you the door was fixed shut for your loss, do you learn their latch, or do you pull every alarm they ignored? The storage unit sits behind a chain-link fence that hums with rain. Sodium light paints the puddles the color of old pennies. I punch the code with a knuckle that doesn't bend all the way and listen for the lock to think about it. Green blink. Metal clicks. I drive in slow, engine low, tires whispering over wet concrete. Door 117. My door. The cylinder takes the dented key on the second try, and the shank slides like it remembers me. I pull the handle. The roll-up complains all the way to the ribs. Tin groan, grit crackle, a final shiver at the top that sends dust grit onto my jacket. The smell rolls out first. Cardboard, old ink, a breath of dry heat from a building that never had a tenant. I step inside and pull the cord on the bare bulb. Yellow light floods the narrow space, flattening the edges of every box. Boxes sit in 3 columns, labeled by year in a hand I can identify in a lineup. 84, 89, 90, 99, year 009. The newer stack reads 10, 16, and 17 today, which makes me laugh once without sound. Today. It always arrives. Each lid has a note under clear tape: stairwells, boiler rooms, egress, alarms, elevator pits, misc, photographs. My life in categories that never made the paper but kept people alive. I set the ledger on the only open square of the floor and lift the lid on the egress. Manila folders slide against each other like shingles. I thumb the tabs until they speak names I know, addresses with rust in the vowel sounds, owners with soft hands and sharp ties. My inspector's notebooks lie beneath, bound with a rubber band and a habit. Gray, covers worn, smooth by the heel of my palm, edges feathered from 1,000 flips. Inside, pencil lines travel with a carpenter's neatness. Dates, codes, dimensions, doodles of a hinge that returned to me in a dream when I needed it. I open a notebook at random. A stairwell sketch looks up. Tread depth 11 inches, riser height 7, nosing chipped handrail gap too wide. My arrows point to the second landing with a note. Replace within 30 days. Recheck. Below is the phone number of a super who moved to Texas a lifetime ago and still sends me a card at the new year. The pencil is light but legible. The memory is sharp. I turn the page. A photo falls into my lap. Photos live in this unit like time capsules. Stairwells, boiler rooms, basements, laundry rooms, roofs. Heat shimmer above an uninsulated pipe. Frost over a vent that never should have seen frost. I hold one up to the bulb, a boiler room from '96 with an ignition panel that only lit if you press the metal just so. I can smell it. I can hear the sound it made when it behaved. I slide it back into its sleeve. I reach for the alarm box. Inside, service tags, replacement dates, battery change logs that would bore anyone who hasn't watched smoke move like a thought through a hallway. A handful of red test pins clatter in a bag, a sound like sleet. I pocket 2 without thinking. Old reflex. You don't go into a building blind. You test the screen before the smoke does. The old badge sits in a shallow tray, secured by a rubber band. The plastic is scuffed to milk. The clip is sprung. The number is mine, whether or not the city remembers assigning it. I lift it and feel the weight when a door opens just because it sat on my chest. I don't take it. The work ahead needs paper, not flash. I slide it back, then slide back everything that pretends authority lives in shine. I gather tools that matter: notebooks, a stack of dated photos, a short ruler that fits a pocket, the red pens, a roll of blue tape, a fat marker, a camera older than my phone that doesn't autocorrect the truth. I drop them into a canvas bag that once carried lunches and now will carry proof. The zipper teeth meet like an old couple holding hands. On the far shelf, a shoebox labeled "Odd Parts" rattles. Inside, hinge screws in 3 lengths, a handful of glides, a door closer arm that fits a model from the 90s, a handful of old keys with tags that read "side," "boiler," "roof" in my block capitals. I rub a thumb across the boiler tag until the ink comes to life. I don't know if any of these will open what I'm heading back to, but keys keep their own counsel. Sometimes just having them tells your hands what to do. I close lids. I retape what wants to open. I leave the 84-89 box with its corner turn because I'll be back for a photo of a man in a tie standing too close to a gas line he didn't pay to sleeve. Some faces need refreshing before you call them by name in the right office. Rain drums the metal roof in a clean beat. No thud, no pause, just a steady rush that sounds like a bucket filling. I douse the bulb. Darkness takes the space in a blink, and the unit becomes a mouth that I step out of. The roll-up shutters back down, ribs rattling until the latch catches. I feed the dented key into the cylinder and feel the pins fall. The canvas bag rides shotgun. The ledger returns to my lap. The car's interior smells like cardboard and graphite and the faint vinegar of old glue. I start the engine and let the heater blow the damp off my sleeves. In the mirror, the storage row looks like a quiet library that keeps dangerous books. I set the canvas bag between my feet so I can feel its weight when I brake. Proof should have mass. Proof should shift when you turn, remind you it's there. I ease out past the fence, past the keypad, onto the street that leads back to the block where my door wears a red sticker like a bruise. If the past still fits the locks of the present, will you turn it, or will you let the men who sell shortcuts write the next page? Corner booth. Diner light makes everything honest. Coffee in a thick white cup that keeps the heat, the way some people keep grudges. I sit with my back to the wall and the canvas bag at my feet like a sleeping dog. The camera is the sugar caddy, the napkin holder, and the window's dark glass. I speak to all 3. I tell you my name again because it matters who says this. Abe Klein. I worked 34 years with a tape measure that never lied and a pencil that didn't forgive. I never failed a safe building. I failed men who thought fines were fees, cost of doing business, a line item next to marketing and lobbyist. They learned that a failed inspection is not a bill. It's a door that doesn't open until the danger is gone. I didn't keep copies because I distrusted the office. I kept them because memory is a kind neighbor until it isn't. Dates slide, numbers smear. A scream you heard in a smoke test becomes a story you tell. Paper doesn't care how tired you are. Paper doesn't drift. It sits where you put it, waiting to be read. I take the ledger out and lay it on the formica. The waitress eyes it the way people eye Bibles in court. I flip past favors until I reach the old notes. Names of inspectors I train, green handrails I painted because a super didn't have a roller, a lobby where I wrote a check for a space heater. After all, the boiler man was 8 hours away, and night comes when it wants. Across from me, the seat is empty. I talk to it anyway. I say I know exactly when the city got easier to buy. It wasn't one day. It was a slow nick at the edge of the rule book, an emergency variance here. A friend called there. We'll follow up. Follow up is where truth goes to stiffen, so I made myself a habit. If I saw it, I wrote it. If I wrote it, I dated it. If I dated it, I kept a copy. I take out a photograph, lay it with 2 fingers. Stairwell, 2001. Clean lines, proper rise and run, handrail smooth as a thought. I remember the super's hands, scabbed, cracked, because he sanded the rail himself when the contractor walked. Safe, passed, a good day. Another photo, boiler room, 2007. A flex gas connector kissing a sharp edge. That's how houses blow. The owner said, "We'll fix it when the rent clears." I said, "You'll fix it now." He called me names I won't repeat because they are dead and I'm still here. He hired a licensed man, and no one died in a boiler room that winter. I failed him twice before he listened. He thought I was punishing. I was preventing. I drink. The cup leaves a ring on the paper placemat, a perfect circle, the color of work. I slide the placemat under the ledger as if the ledger deserves a tablecloth. I speak to the camera I don't have. I say, I am not pure. I let a fix slide to Monday when I should have stood in the hallway all night until the part arrived. I believed a contractor who swore he'd install the second exit bar by noon, and I signed off at 11 because his wife was in labor. He didn't install it. I drove back at dusk and stood with my badge in my fist while his men finished the job by flashlight. I remember the flashlight more than his apology. That's why I kept copies, so I could write my failures next to theirs and know where the line is when I draw it again. The waitress tops me off. "You need food." "Hun?" I shake my head. Food is slow. Today is not. She leaves a receipt under the cup. Tip line empty, promise implied. I'll do right by her when the building breathes again. The canvas bag is heavy with years. Not glory. Details. Code numbers that look like scripture until you hear what they stop. A child running in a hallway and not falling through where a spindle should be. Smoke finding a door that opens because the magnet holds when heat hits it. A mother waking to a beep at 3 a.m. because a battery was changed last week, not next. This is why I kept records. Not to win an argument. To put a hand on a future I will not live to see and nudge it away from a headline with candles on a sidewalk. Paper is a poor weapon until you stack it. Then it's a wall. Then it's a case. Then it's a pair of cuffs on a man who thinks make it stick is a game. I open the ledger to today's page. I write one line. Return to booth with coffee, 5:42 p.m. Bag packed. Files ready. 14 addresses. Start with doors. I dot the period like a nail head. The lines above it are my life. The line below it is the work. If you knew your memory would forgive people who hurt you, would you trust recall or would you trust paper? Kirill's list hits my phone in a single hiss of text. 14 addresses. Owners masked by boxes within boxes. I copy them by hand into the ledger, ink steadier than my pulse, then lay our haul across the dash. Photos, notebooks, a short ruler, blue tape, a fat marker. I turn the car into a desk. I sort by life safety first. Doors, gas, alarms, 3 piles. I tape a white border under each photo and print the facts on the tape like labels on evidence. 1609 Harrow, rear egress chained. IBC 1010.1.9, chain observed in tenant complaint photos from 4 to 12 and 5 and 3. Ruler pressed to the print, chain link width, they were 60 mm, not necessary to win, essential to remember. Next photo, a hall with glowing paint but dead detectors. I write without heat. 241 Mott, alarms silent, tags expired. NFPA 72, 10.4.5, 14.4.5. Last service tag is 19 months old. I dropped 2 red test pins into a bag marked field, not because I'll be allowed inside, but because habit is an engine that pulls you through even when doors shut. Gas line print, flex connector scuffed where it passes a sheet metal edge. 435 King, connector abrasion, no bushing. IFGC 404.6, 404.9.3. I sketched the cross-section in 2 strokes so a clerk who's never smelled a leak can still see the risk. Mateo's email opens like a kit. He's pre-built the skeleton. Intake, life safety, door, alarm, gas. Beneath each, a paragraph with empty brackets. I fill them with code sections and times. He'll ghost send through public portals that must assign case numbers on receipt. Intake can stall calls. It cannot erase a docket number without leaving fingerprints. Lila's on speaker. The bus wheezes at the curb outside. The car shivers with it. Routes are ready, she says. Fire prevention for alarms and doors. Buildings for egress and stairs. AG's Civil Rights Unit for the patterns. No flourish, just lanes. Kirill murmurs from the back seat. Names unspool on his screen like wire. 2 LLCs sharing a registered agent who signs both as R. Hale, the developer's fixer with a tasteful tie and a habit of laughing at the ends of threats. A safety consultant with a P.O. box that matches the demolition subcontractor's billing address. He circles each on the laptop with a red box and screenshots the shape for our packets. I built the first report the way you assemble a tool. Subject: 1609 Harrow, blocked rear egress. Facts: chain and padlock across the marked exit. Tenant photos attached. Prior complaint. 1 run 783 was closed, resolved with no inspector signature. Codes: IBC, Swando 10 1.9, 1031.2. Risk: egress obstruction during fire. Request: immediate inspection, remove obstruction, verify exit hardware, attach reinspection date. I paste Mateo's template language at the bottom that forces a log entry. This submission is made in good faith under penalty of perjury. Please acknowledge receipt with case number. Bureaucracy respects phrases that carry weight. Second report, 241 Mott, non-functioning alarms. I attach stills of the dusty detectors, magnifying the tag date until the numbers fill the frame. NFPA 72 14.4.5 requires inspection, testing, and maintenance at set intervals. I write the interval in plain English for the clerk who's sick of acronyms. Annual functional tests required. 18 months elapsed. Third report, 435. King, gas connector abrasion. I keep it spare, no adjectives. IFGC 404.6 requires protection against physical damage. 404.9.3 requires sleeves where piping passes through metal. I add a single line. Observed wear pattern suggests vibration against sharp edge. Potential leak. A photo doesn't smell like mercaptan, but a line can. The clock pushes toward the hour. I built 4 more packets. Lila's routing tree waits like a net. Official portals that issue confirmation numbers by law, not friendliness. ICC a neutral public inbox that auto-posts complaint summaries, sunlight, even if the shade tries to follow. I lay the 14 addresses across the dash in order of consequence and cross one set with the developer's shell map. Where wires touch, I put a star. Those packets get extra: campaign finance screenshots, vendor overlaps, a ribbon-cutting photo where his smile is too broad. And the councilman's aide stands 5 feet away, eyes already done with him. Patterns don't need sharp words. They need a sequence. I hit send on the first 3. A second later, intake auto-replies stack like tickets under a wiper. Case GRM FP 302114. Case GR BLD 77822. Case GR AG 90613. Numbers that will be read aloud in rooms without cameras. Mateo replies to the thread with one line, logged. It's the kind of word that makes men like our developer reach for phones they thought would ring only with good news. Lila pings me with an address book of names that will have to move when the logs hit. Intake supervisors, duty inspectors, and an assistant DA who cares more about patterns than meetings. No one special, just people who still sleep at night. I add a sticky note to the ledger. Follow up 48-Rs. Ask for case notes and next steps. Kirill closes his laptop. Their first move will be to wipe internal notes, he says. But intake numbers are public by statute. He says statute the way a carpenter says stud, as something you can lean on. He taps the little server on the seat. Mirrors made. I pull the dented key off the ring and set it on the dash next to the case numbers. Useless for a door tonight, useful as a weight to keep the papers from sliding. I breathe out through my nose and feel the old badge's ghost on my chest. I don't need it. I have what matters. The wall of code, the wheel of process, the names of rooms where excuses go to die. The car interior looks like a war room built from office supplies. Blue tape borders, marker notes, photos squared to edges. No shouting, no speeches, just a table that tells the truth in numbers and sections until someone has to move. We've thrown the first stones, paper ones. They don't make noise when they land. They make schedules. When the first confirmation numbers hit your inbox, do you celebrate or do you press for the next entry before anyone has time to bury the last? The first phone rings before the heater warms my hands. Case numbers breathe themselves into the world, automated voices reading digits like charges. I drive slowly past 1609 Harrow and see it happen in real time. A city van noses to the curb, two inspectors in raincoats, one with a bolt cutter, one with a clipboard. Chain meets jaws, pops once, falls like a dead snake. The back door yawns and takes a breath it hasn't had in months. Crosscut in my head. 241 Mott, alarms. Tested with a can of aerosol, a tone drills the hall. Tenants flinch, then smile like they forgot the sound of a promise kept. A tech dates the tag with a thick marker. No speeches. Just a new year on red paper. I mark a check in my ledger so small that only I will ever care. 435, King, basement boiler room. A worker slides a bushing over a flex connector. Knuckles grease black, jaw set. The moment the metal stops rubbing the sharp edge, my shoulders drop an inch I didn't know they were holding. Safety isn't a headline. It's the sound of nothing going wrong. At a light, I watch a crew peel a faded inspected sticker off a panel and replace it with fresh ink and an actual signature. My old habit counts the pen strokes from here. I don't need to see the face. The pen tells me. Someone stood there and took time. 2 more auto replies land. AG 906114, BLD 77823. Across town, red tags start blooming like poppies after a burn. Chained doors, blocked stairs, junked out storage under exit signs getting scraped into dumpsters while a foreman pretends he always meant to do it. I picture the developer's calendar hiccuping as site managers call in issues that used to be line items marked ignore. A low rumble beneath the montage, my mind walking my building stairs, counting risers that aren't mine anymore. I keep my hands at 10 and 2, and my eyes straight while behind the glass. A city starts to sweat off someone else's shortcuts. When the first cut chain hits concrete, do you let yourself feel relief? Or do you ask who fastened the next lock you haven't seen yet? The fixer calls at 9:07, unknown number. He leaves a voicemail like he's ordering coffee. Says my first name like we've shared a table. Says vigorous enforcement period like he's reading from a memo he wrote himself. He chuckles at the end, a sound that falls flat in the small box of my car and dies there. I save the message and file it under Men Who Think Tone is Power. Lila texts. Press asked for comment re multi-property enforcement sweep. We gave none. Good. Let the work speak in doors that open and alarms that shout when they should. Mateo sends photos from a second district. Fire door magnets tested, click-clack, hold, release. He captions one with a single word. Finally. I forward it to myself twice, not for memory, paper has that, but for fuel. A child will run under that sign and find a way out because a magnet did its job. That's a win you measure in heartbeats, not headlines. Kirill drops a map pin cluster into our thread. 14 dots. 3 already turned green in his overlay. Verified actions taken. 2 blink yellow, inspection schedule. 1 flashes red, elevator out of service tag ignored, phone line dead. I reply with a number I haven't used in years and a name I remember from a training session where a man argued with me about counterweights over cheap coffee. He will answer. Some people never stopped. I park under a scaffold while rain patters on a metal roof and fills the cabin with a steady hiss. An inspector in a hard hat huddles with a tenant in a pink raincoat and logs an on-site complaint linked to a case number that will outlive both of them. This is how you move a wall. 1 brick, 1 line, 1 number that can't be erased without leaving a scratch big enough for anyone to see. My phone buzzes again. The fixer tries a second time, a shorter message. 2 sentences and the same laugh at the end, like a stamp he thinks makes things official. I don't call back. I tag it and forward it to a folder where patterns are stacked. I tilt the rear view and look at my own eyes. They are old. They are clear. The canvas bag rides shotgun like a partner who doesn't need thanks. The dented key waits in the cup holder. It isn't for these locks. It's for mine. When a threat comes wrapped in a laugh, do you hear the joke, or do you hear the fear inside it and press harder? Lila works like a stenographer at a fire. No flourish, just facts in a line that can hold weight. Subject: pattern of discriminatory practices tied to ownership cluster. Dates: she lists them like rail spikes, complaints filed, no heat days logged, no vacancy replies sent within minutes when Spanish last names asked to view units, approvals granted same day when names shifted to Adams or Klein. Denials: application incomplete, income insufficient, unit suddenly unavailable. She attaches screenshots time-stamped to the minute, 2 inboxes side by side, 1 no, 1 come by at 3. That is not a glitch. That is a filter. She pulls tenant statements from the ledger's margins, Mrs. Alvarez's email, where she was told to try elsewhere closer to her community. Andre's cousin's voicemail about being told the building wasn't a good fit. She pairs each with a photo of the same hall the very next week. New paint, staged fern, listing live. The referral routes to federal civil rights intake, with a second copy to state housing enforcement and a blind copy to an advocacy group that knows how to read between the lines. Each packet includes what moves offices, numbers, rejected applicants by surname over 18 months, comparators, paired calls, remedies sought, injunctive relief, civil penalties, monitoring. On my dash, the case numbers from the first strike sit like mile markers. I underline AG 90613 and add cross-filed HUD FHIO, pattern disparate treatment, plus disparate impact, clinical voice, unarguable. Kirill narrates without looking up. Same contractor across 5 LLCs. Invoices differ only in the name block and date. He stacks PDFs on his screen. Renova City LLC, Renovate Urban LLC, RNV Capital Holdings, all of which are paying Cervantes site services for safety upgrades the same week a fake pass sticker went up. Line items repeat down to a typo, stairwell restripping. He drops bank record metadata beside them. Identical ACH descriptors, batched within 1 hour, debits from accounts with a single registered agent. He says, "We have common control," like he's telling me the weather. I pull a cardboard file box from the back and fill it the way you pack for a hearing. Tab dividers, Exhibit A through H, photos, logs, code citations, discrimination pair testing, shell map, contractor overlaps, intake confirmations, Voicemail transcript from the fixer with his chuckle hanging at the end like lint. On the inside flap, I tape a one-page index. No speeches. Just a path any auditor can walk in 10 minutes and never get lost. The rain lets up to a mist that makes the city look like it's holding its breath. I drive to the federal building and leave the car where the meter reads Row 14. Not enough, but enough. The lobby smells like wax and damp coats. Security bins my keys. The dented one looks like nothing in the tray. I pass through the arch, retrieve the metal, and check the directory for intake, GRC, civil. Third floor, left, a glass window, a slot for documents, a bell you press when you're done pretending to be patient, a clerk with a tired face that never dips into rudeness. I slide the box into the slot and the index on top. Affidavit, she says. Yes? I place it where her hand already is. It says, I declare under penalty of perjury. And then everything else is in clean lines. I underline my name like a carpenter sets a level on a frame. She stamps the top right corner and hands me a receipt with a number that will be spoken aloud in rooms I won't see. I don't ask for favors, I ask for the process. Process is how you move big things without breaking your back. When you have enough to file under oath, do you hold back for leverage, or do you put your name on it and make it everyone's problem? Outside, the light has that washed steel look it gets after a hard rain. I breathe once, then twice. The canvas bag is lighter by a box and heavier by a receipt. I text a photo of the stamped cover to Lila and Mateo. No emojis, just filed. Intake, JARCR CR 512274. Kirill's second thread updates while I'm still on the steps. He's mapped vendor hops, shells paying shells, each taking a shave before a safety invoice hits a building. He overlays the money map with our 14 addresses. The lines crisscross like bad wiring. In the corner, he adds a thin arrow toward a political committee account, contributions spiking within 48 hours of large consulting payouts. He doesn't label it an accusation. He labels it a timeline. Lila fires a second salvo, supplemental memo to civil rights intake, copying the U.S. Attorney's Office, attaching Kirill's diagrams as illustrative context for willful pattern. The phrase willful pattern is a crowbar in a sentence. It pries the next door open. I call the advocacy group's intake line and read 5 names: tenants who tried and failed to get heat, who were told to move, who woke to notices worded to terrify. I don't tell their stories for them. I give dates and documents. The group will call with interpreters and patience, and the tenants will decide their own measure of fight. Dignity is a door. You don't shove anyone through it. Back in the car, I add 2 items to the ledger. Box filed CR 512274, oath. Crossref, AG 90613, all HUD FHEO, USAO copy. Then a third line. Hold voicemail from R. Hale for subpoena. When a laugh ends a threat, it's not color, it's evidence of tone and intent. My phone buzzes with an unknown number from out of state. I let it drop to voicemail. If it matters, it will land where paper lives. I set the dented key on the receipt and trap both under my palm, cold metal, warm paper, proof and promise in one hand. I don't feel triumphant. I think alignment, the slow click of gears that were designed to move if someone bothered to set them right. This is the part that men like our developer never predict. They know favors. They don't know the procedure when it doesn't bend. I look at the clock. 12 approaches like a quiet footstep. The next strike is already waiting. Wills, titles, ownership, the deed that says my name without a wink. I lift the key and the receipt and tuck both into the ledger. When the law finally turns to face your block, do you step back and watch? Or do you walk beside it and make sure it doesn't miss a door? Rain again, same block, same steps. The red sticker still bruises the glass, curled at one corner, as if it wants to peel off on its own. Sirens fade to idle. Two unmarked sedans. A marshal steps out first, hood up, jaw set. Another opens the rear door. The developer emerges hunched, wrists cinched, the chain whispering like a bad idea repeating itself. No tie today. Wet hair. Eyes looking for someone to perform to, and finding only glass. He glances at the door he bought with a bribe and a laugh. The door does not glance back. Reporters fan across the sidewalk, parkas flaring, microphones raised. Their questions overlap. Dates, charges, pattern, housing, civil rights, shell companies, money map. He angles his chin for a practiced line that isn't coming. The marshal turns him toward the steps. I stand just inside the bus stop. The plexiglass streaked the way their first photo was streaked. Ledger at chest height, both hands under it, not a podium, a record. I hold it the way he held the auction deed, elbows tucked, cover facing out, so the city can read what it paid for and what it will pay back. My thumb sits on today's page where the case numbers live like mile markers. He sees me. There's a flinch he tries to turn into a sniff. His eyes drop to the ledger, then to my hands. The keys sit in my right palm, brass, nickel, the dented one balanced like a coin on a knuckle trick. I don't move them. A marshal guides him forward with two fingers on his elbow, the way you move a man who still thinks he's leading. Cameras click in rows, rain ticking their shells. Lila stands 3 bodies back, no statement ready, because statements are what people give when they have less than paper. Mateo leans under the scaffold, phone-pocketed, eyes on the magnet over the lobby door like a man who knows what wins a fire. Kirill is a shadow behind a column, the quiet server back home whispering to itself, already mirroring the clip feeds and docket updates. The developer steps onto the first riser. He lowers his shoulder, reflex from 1,000 ribbon cuttings, as if a door will bow to a posture. The marshal nudges. He climbs. I don't speak. I don't tilt the ledger to show off pages or wave keys like a flag. I let him pass within arm's length so the chain sound is clear in my chest. A drop falls from his cuff onto the top edge of my book, a tiny circle that dries into nothing, a perfect record of the moment, visible only if you care to look. He tries a smile of indifference at a reporter with a local mic. It misfires. The reporter keeps asking about 14 properties and a contractor who can't spell restriping. The developer's mouth opens, then closes. He used to end calls with a laugh. He does not laugh at this. The marshals pivot him at the door. The red sticker faces him now. He reads it, the way I read it, the way every tenant reads it, and packed a bag and a plant and a photo, the way I sat in my car and made a ledger into a blade. The marshal holds the door. The developer doesn't get to touch it. He goes in under the curve of another man's hand, and for the first time since the auction, the building inhales without him. A photographer turns his lens to me. I tilt the ledger down just enough that all he can catch is the edge of a receipt and the ridge of a thumb. This is not a promo shot. This is record-keeping in the rain. The chain sound fades. The lobby light clicks, a ballast catching. The magnets hum. Somewhere upstairs, water hammers a pipe and then settles, the way a house clears its throat before it speaks. I close the ledger. I pocket the keys. My palm prints their shape like they're reminding my skin who's who. When the man who priced your life's work at $500K shuffles past your door in cuffs, do you spend words or let the keys answer? The locksmith leaves 2 new cylinders shining like coins in a clean jar. The lobby smells like wet coats and boiled coffee. The radiators tick alive, soft even, the sound of a building remembering its job. Mrs. Alvarez steps in first, a spider plant under her arm, a pot wrapped in the same grocery bag I watched in the rain. She doesn't ask permission. She sets it on the sill where the light finds it after noon and presses the soil once, like checking a pulse. Andre follows with a taped box and a grin he tries to hide. His mother swats the grin and thanks me without words. Mr. Singh wheels in a suitcase and a radio wrapped in a towel. He nods to the ceiling like he's greeting an old neighbor. Mateo works the hallway slowly and sure. Pull, hold, release. Each fire door clicks, hums, and lets go on command. He tags the panel with today's date and a black line that will outlast our moods. In 3C, he climbs a chair, swaps a battery, presses test, the kitchen chirps to life, and a little girl claps like it's a trick. He winks at me, writes pass on the clipboard, and leaves a spare 9-volt in the drawer next to the T. Lila tapes a tenant rights flyer to the corkboard with blue painter's tape, corners true, translations in 3 languages. She adds 2 phone numbers under call if and a third under call me anyway. No slogans, just steps. She lines up the thumbtacks and sets a fresh stack of complaint forms on the table below. The pen is tied to the clipboard so it doesn't walk. She ties the knot twice. Kirill crouches under the lobby camera with a tiny screwdriver and the kind of patience you learn when you've had to make yourself small. He cleans the lens with the edge of his sleeve, resets the time, and routes the feed to a recorder the size of a wallet tucked behind the mailboxes. The monitor wakes. The frame is square. He stands, cracks his knuckles once, and hands me a chipped mug that says "World's Second Best Super" in a font someone's kid picked. The coffee is strong and honest. I take it. The rain eases to a whisper against the glass. The red sticker is gone. A clean square patch of Windex marks its former location. I take the dented brass key, the one that sat on my dashboard like a promise, and set it in the ceramic dish by the door. It lands with that small ceramic note that reads "Home." Next to it, I place a new key. Smooth edges, fresh cuts, old promise, new teeth. I open the ledger to today's page and draw a final line across the bottom. Not a period, a line. Work continues. I slide the ledger onto the office shelf where the sun won't bleach it and the radiator won't swell it, next to a box labeled "Copies." Paper waits. People live. The radiators settle into their steady talk. Upstairs, a kettle sings. In the stairwell, someone laughs just once, surprised by the sound of themselves not bracing. I stand by the glass and count floors by sight instead of memory. The building breathes, and this time I breathe with it. We're back inside. We're staying. If you want to stand with us on the next door that won't open, subscribe now and bring someone who needs the heat.